Thank you, Ram, and thank you for having me here in the last, or at least late hour, when I decided that I could come here. So the good news is I have only one slide. Right? The bad news is I could speak for an hour. So I think I will get more specifically to what you see on the slide in a few minutes, but I thought I'd start, given what Rajiv and Ram already did, and many of the comments actually that came out from Ravi and Eric. I'll tell you a little bit of the process and history because that may have some implications to other things we do in the future. So for us, we've had in the MBA program, I think 2006-07, I created a business analytics concentration because we were doing so much already. We had courses in data mining, forecasting, decision making, a whole series of things, right? And I'm sure every MBA program did, and we sort of collected them and started presenting them to our students. So then in 2009, my marketing colleague Prasad and I actually made a proposal, a very detailed proposal to the faculty to put together a business analytics program. And this is actually specifically addressing something Eric brought up about what's the next thing. And the proposal I thought was great. In the 1990s, I spent all my time on data-driven, model-driven decision-making and technologies. We brought in a lot of interesting context and what was happening in industry and business schools. And the response we got was that, hey, if everything you're telling us is correct and all this demand you're forecasting for jobs in this field and what's happening in the MBA program and the knowledge we are not providing in the MBA program, if all of this is correct, why isn't anyone offering a program like that? So, being the first to propose something there are some interesting aspects of how to manage that. And even though we had a lot of data and other things to back us up, the competing program at the time was a master's in accounting, where the curriculum is very well defined, the jobs are, auto def for big firms. So it was a very high risk perception for a program like analytics. And of course, when we do the next thing, it will have those same characteristics. So that's something to think about. Anyway, 5 years later in 2014, Prasad and I sat back and decided to do this thing one more time. And of course, this time we would not be the first program anymore, we'd be the 20-something. And so it forced us to think really, really hard about what a good design was, which we had not done previously 5 or 6 years before that. So continuing on the process front, what we did was, we are at the University of California, and there's the whole UCOP system, and then each of the UCs is extremely bureaucratic. I think any four of us who've done this now can attest to that. And we've seen other programs, like Georgia Tech come out of 3 college collaborations and so forth. And of course, this is a field that has computing, statistics, business, humanities. So we made a very conscious decision to co-opt individuals who had leadership roles in this broad field in different departments and colleges, but not to involve any other college. So this was entirely a business school-driven program. But I may have had Colin Cameron from economics, who does econometrics, has written a book on econometrics and R. Duncan Templeline, who's one of the initial co-developers of R, who's in the statistics department. We had this guy, Joe Dumit, like Ram mentioned, in the QSS. Joe runs an Institute for Social Science and Technology Studies that looks at data science in humanities. And then it was really hard getting someone from computer science to deeply collaborate, and I mentioned implications of that later. And then math and stats, we sort of got their blessing. So what we did was really co-opt individuals rather than departments in creating this cross-disciplinary intellectual thing. And I think that went off really well, and it meant that we could get total approval for this program in a really, really short span of 24 months. I thought that was a joke. It's been the most approved thing I have done in my life. We must have received about 30 or 40 signatures from multiple committees and provosts and system-level provosts and chancellors and presidents. So it's a very, very intricate approval process, which means that you've got to do things that, if not appeal to all of these multiple groups, at least do not create major tensions or threats. And so that's something we had to manage during that long process. All right, so maybe let's talk about the actual design. So, and one final item about process. After getting all these academics, we actually then brought in the industry, and I was reminded about that by Rajiv. So we actually had about 4 to 6 months of repeated brainstorming sessions. And ultimately, sort of this giant spreadsheet of topics that people from industry said, we have to cover these things. And then what about them? What are the learning objectives related to these topics? And of course, very quickly, we put together a 2 or 3 year long program, right? And so then the challenge was really what's core, what really needs to be in, what's the learning philosophy, what's critical to include in this 10-month program that we sort of made an exogenous choice early on that it's going to be 1 year, turned out to be 10 months. So in terms of the philosophy of the program, it is something that also Rajiv brought up in his initial discussion, that our philosophy is really to produce graduates who are capable of a beginning to end effort in business analytics. And of course, to do all of that in 10 months really goes back to this notion that yes, they can do beginning to end, but it's like a quick and dirty implementation, right? So we're not producing PhDs or experts, and you can pick each of these topics, but really we want students who can ask the questions. I think Ram mentioned that earlier. And then they can structure the problem, they can speak to clients, business managers to really understand what needs to be done. And then go on with the technical side of architecting the data, cleaning, statistics, and then go back and interpret, explain, persuade. And really that's how you have impact or influence, by actually convincing people to do things, because ultimately any of such analytics exercise will lead to some kind of change in the organization. So given that beginning to end philosophy, what we thought was that what we need to provide in the coursework is a foundation to learn. There is no way we can cover all the things that people will want to know at the time they graduate in a technical science, but if you give them enough tools that they can identify, pick up, learn, that's great. And so that led to the structure of the curriculum and the way it's all laid out. I think someone also mentioned this thing about teams and how, and this really came out of that industry collaboration process. We said, first of all, we know there are certain distinct skills that are needed to do business analytics. And someone mentioned coding, that's the computing side, the statistics or quantitative analysis. Then it's a business analytics program in which, ultimately these graduates, you want them to frame and ask the questions, right? So you want people with business, entrepreneurship, knowledge of business, that sort of thinking. And then finally, it's something we call organizational effectiveness. That's communication, of course, but critical thinking, leadership, team management, change management, those sorts of issues. So the curriculum is structured around those 4 scale areas. And then in each one of them, what we did in terms of laying out the curriculum, so the other big philosophy in the program is this idea of learning by doing project. Everybody does that. But for us, it's a project that runs the entire length of the program. And so you can see in the beginning of the project, it's really the company gives them a context, a domain, set up, it's a boundary, loose boundary. And in the first couple of months, it's actually the student's job to really define and frame the project. So in this project, they will go and conduct this beginning to end analytics exercise. In order to do that successfully, one, we lay out the curriculum in a way that aligns with the likely activities in the project. And secondly, we are admitting students to enable formation of these teams. So actually admitting students in these 4 separate skill buckets that we identified. And so these students coming from a background in journalism, of course, economics, statistics, business, and various other fields. So as you can see, in the first quarter, we have things like problem structuring, visualization, absolutely critical. And actually, it was something we struggled with. It's something you need in the beginning and you need at the end. So you need it in the beginning to explore, right, and you need it at the end to explain and interpret, right? So it's something that will be very fundamental in the whole process. And so the first quarter is really about opening the eyes to the use of business analytics, and I think structuring is a very, very critical course, that's something maybe new in terms of what's in other designs. And then all the other stuff I think is pretty standard. The middle quarter gets very deeply technical, actually sometimes worry about how students are going to handle big data, advanced statistics, and machine learning all at the same time. And these 3 courses and topics are somewhat interconnected, overlapping, so I'm getting all the instructors to talk to each other. And then at the end, it goes back into issues that are not critical in the beginning of a project, but you need to worry about at the end. So data management is about cleaning, ELT, and all of that. But in the final database design representation course, you're really learning how to organize the data so that it meets competing, objectives of good principle design, but performance and scaling to do analytics. It's really how you set up the data for the project to ultimately run over time. So we learned a lot and we made some crucial choices. I'm done.
What's the time?
How much time do I have?
Not much.
1 minute.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Mine is one.
Okay. So I will stop here. I don't have to go on, but I think there are still crucial choices we made, and I don't think we made them perfectly. The project is a very high risk effort because it's 10 months long and will require deep inside information for companies. So we'll see how that goes.
Awesome. Thanks. Any quick question? I like to have some questions before the all.
It's actually a wonderful question. It's a mix of two things. One is sort of if you can think of structuring methods, issue trees, influence diagrams, and some other things of that sort. But I think 60% of the course is really the soft skills needed to glean information from either yourself or others in terms of identifying objectives, picking good metrics. I'm speaking with people who, and I'm mixing the teaching with an industry expert who doesn't really know modeling and analytics, but really has done higher level consulting work. So it's that mix of that methods and software skills.
Good job getting so much mileage for one slide. Awesome. Well done.